to say that we're disappointed would be an understatement, to be honest with you. I was, it's interesting, the profession we're in, the coaches here know what we're talking about. And I think if anyone could ever figure out how you consistently get a team on the same page on game day, it'd be an interesting study. We all have our routines we go through, and when something happens like what happened Saturday, and I'll kind of break the games down, where you just first half you just don't have it. And listen, I'm not going to make excuses, but I'm going to tell you a couple things that I was concerned about going to Northwestern State. One of them was this: we were on a bus for 28 hours the 2 games prior to in a week. Bus to Abilene, came back. Bus to Stephen F., came back. And even though we take sleeper buses and we sleep, I know that that had a little bit to do with it. So I was concerned about that and warned the guys of that. It's more of a psychological thing than a physical thing, to be honest with you. And but our practice on Friday before the game was really good. We were very spirited, very upbeat. I thought the guys were locked in on what we needed to do. And so I really didn't have that much of a concern of that. And I think that the way the game started out, the first 5 or 6 minutes, we had some unbelievable wide open shots that we didn't make. And that led to some baskets at the other end that kind of snowballed on us. And what was interesting was at halftime, we went into my office, and my staff was a little, if you notice me, first half, I took one time out, got on them pretty good, and then I left them alone. And sometimes, it's kind of like telling a little kid not to touch a stove. Eventually you go ahead and touch the stove. You got to burn yourself before you can figure this out. And I told our staff at halftime, I said, we're down 24, and I said, we're not going to have to go in and yell at them. They're going to play a great second half. I said, but unfortunately, they don't understand. They can't come back from that far down. I wasn't giving up. I've just done this too long. Because here's in essence what we did. We walked out there and said, put on the scoreboard, Northwestern State 24, Central Arkansas 0, and let's play a 20-minute game. That's what we did. And that's what kids don't get. A lot of times it's not the amount of points you're behind, it's the amount of time you have left. And I think the optimism for me is at the opposite end of that spectrum was how well we played at Stephen F. Now that came down to we had 2 shots at the end to win the game, and it didn't pan out, but we also missed 9 free throws in the game that wouldn't have come down to those last 2 shots. But we battled back and forth, and I told the guys after that game, sometimes you'll play well enough that you deserve to win and you won't. And that's what happened in that game. And I know I've had some people come up and say, man, Coach, weren't you proud of their comeback on Saturday? And I said, no. Because they should have played both halves that way. You don't get credit for being bad because you were better like in the second half. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm glad they didn't quit, but they're not going to quit because they'd have to deal with me on that one. But the thing is, I'm not giving them credit for coming back. They should have played that way. And that's where the disgust for me is a little bit. I love these guys. They're easy to coach. They're good dudes. And if you'd have been at our practice this morning, you'd have got mad like I did. Not because they practice bad, because they practice so good. And you would have said, why didn't you do that on Saturday? And I think that part of ours is immaturity, kind of figuring out that, there's 15 guys out there and all their brains need to sync up on game day. And I think we're learning that because, see, today's practice means absolutely nothing for Saturday. It just means today they were good, and they can draw from the fact they were good, but there's no carryover. There's no carryover from game to game very much. Because guess what? Thatch Unruh had 33 points. You don't think Southeast Louisiana is going to guard him different? Yeah, they're going to. So somebody else has to step up. And that's the thing about sports. I mean, how about the whiz kid getting it handed to him yesterday in the Super Bowl? That dude, greatest offensive mind, of all time, and dude is over there looking at his plays like I thought I was watching The Water Boy in his playbook. Why? Because they got a chance to prepare for a couple weeks. And I think in sports sometimes we lend, like when we were on the 4-game winning streak, it didn't have anything to do with Game 5. Really didn't. So the optimism for me is this: our league is just so balanced this year. And I keep telling our guys, whoever gets it right, Whoever gets it right, we may have a harder time making the tournament than winning the tournament, just because of the way things are breaking. And I think that we will, and I think we'll get it figured out. The thing I look at is this. In 3 conference games, we've had this happen to us. Happened at Corpus the very first game, happened at home against Sam, and happened the other night. In all 3 of those games, I felt like we got behind not because the teams were better, but of our deficiencies. The other night, we simply wouldn't sprint back and stop the ball. And I told the guys, all they had to do, if you want to put this into a very simple form, in first grade, we used to go out on the PE field, and there'd be a line, and we'd get behind this line, and we'd look at each other and say, ready, set, go, and we'd race to the flagpole. That's what defensive transition is. You race from one end to the other and get in front of them so they don't go make a layup. And when you don't do that, that's not even basketball talent. That's having a big old heart. And that's what we have to build on. And the second half, we didn't get back in that game because of Northwestern's miscues. They didn't turn it over much. We got back in that game because we were better than they were. We just dominated them. But basketball is not always just an athletic game. It's a thinking game, it's a smart game, and it's more than anything, it's heart and toughness. And we're learning that. Right now it's disappointing, and I feel obviously that that falls on me, and I think we corrected some things today. And like I said, good guys, they want to do it. But it's kind of like all of us on January 1st. I'm going to lose weight this year, and then January 3rd you're eating pie. So you got to have some discipline when you do this too. But we get a chance to kind of regroup, and tomorrow we're all going out recruiting. I'm heading over to Washington D.C. to see our big 7-footer that's having a fantastic year that we signed, and we're excited about him. Coach Boone's heading out to Phoenix to look at some young kids, and Matt's going with me, and then I'll be back Wednesday, and we'll start practice again. So tomorrow they get a breather, and then we'll have 3 good days to get ready for Southeast Louisiana.